Hi guys, if you watched a few of my recent videos, you know I tried running a 3-inch frame with a GoPro on top, or in this case a Runcam 3, but the intention longer term was to run a GoPro. And I experimented with my Zero S3M and also the 360 degrees 3-inch frame. I've become a little bit, I suppose, obsessed with 3-inch quads and their GoPro carrying abilities. So I've got a few frames on the way that I want to look at, and my idea for this is really just to get a couple of frames up in the air and try out different motor and prop combinations, etc., different weights, and see if I can find the sweet spot between a fast quad and one that's I should say a light quad, but also one that has enough momentum to make it fun for freestyle. And there's a fine balance here because, of course, we're going to be running relatively small motors, 1407s, etc., which don't have a huge amount of torque. So today what we're going to look at is the Rotorious FPV CB3, which is basically a 3-inch freestyle orientated frame. So if I just open it up and we'll have a look and see what you get in the pack. So we get antenna tube, business card, base plate, top plate, battery pad, standoff screws and 3D printed stuff, and more 3D printed stuff and battery pads, and even a little buzzer actually, and ends for the antenna tubes. So what I'll do is I'm going to put all this together and then we'll have a look at it. There he is with all his finery for the 2 foam battery pads that it comes with. And as you can see, what we've really got here is kind of a mini alien or a baby alien. They do credit the alien in the design, but obviously it's been shrunk and made as a micro, in this case a 3-inch quad. And as you can see, we've got a true freestyle setup. So we've got squash decks, and this popular for freestyle simply because it gives you more agility in terms of rolls, etc., and because you're not flying fast with the nose down, you don't really need stretched X's when it comes to freestyle frames. So this has really been designed as an acro frame, and there's lots of nice features in this. First of all, the carbon fibre is nicely cut, and it states that this is Japanese, what was it called? Japanese Toray T700, I think it was called. And the only time I've come across this before is on the Demon RC Fury frame that I had some time ago. Never managed to break that. I'm imagining it's pretty good stuff. It certainly looks good quality. And while it's really stiff, it does have a little tiny bit of flex to it, which is a good sign, I think, as it means it won't snap and it's not too brittle. What we've got is a 1-piece bottom plate, which is 3mm, and we've got a 1-piece top plate, which is 2mm. We've got 4 7075 aluminium standoffs, which are 25mm, and these do feel like a better quality than the general ones you get from Banggood and frames like that, etc. So if they are 7 or 7.5, then they'll be much stronger than the usual cheesy ones that we tend to get with most frames. But as you can see, the one beauty of this frame is it comes with tons of 3D printed bits, which are included in the kit. And there's lots of different colours you can get this in. So we've got arm protectors, and these basically wrap around the arms, and they're basically designed to protect the end of your arms from splintering and cracking, obviously if you hit rock or you're flying over concrete, etc. And they also serve the purpose of acting as soft mounts for your motors. So there's something that I'll definitely be using, whether on this frame or another 3-inch frame, because the majority of 1407 motors have a fair bit of cogging, so they do add a bit of vibration along the arms. The only pretty powerful motor that doesn't in the 1407 category is the Cobra ones, but the majority of others do. We've also got 3D printed camera mounts for a micro Swift or micro Foxeer camera. We've got, again at the back, a TPU antenna mount system. So it basically just got two antenna tubes that you can clip in and caps to go over the end of them. I've already lost one of mine, it rolled under my workbench, so I'll have to have a look for that later. And on the top we've got another 3D printed mount, which is for an XT30 connector. And the idea of this frame is you'll run the battery on top. So if you had a 850 mAh battery, it's a top mounted frame. However, this isn't the way I'm going to design mine, or should I say build mine. One thing I forgot to mention actually, the mounting holes for your motors on this particular frame, they, according to the website, they suit the 1100 series motors, 1300 and 1400, which is what I will be using. And I think they've achieved that by basically using slotted motor screw holes. And that is my one concern on this particular frame, is that the holes here are very, very close to this central cutout. So we are talking about a 3-inch frame here, and it shouldn't be the end of the world, but I'd prefer there to be a little bit more meat there. That's my only criticism with this frame. So what I'm going to do is we'll get it on the scales and see what it weighs, and we'll see what it weighs with all the fancy stuff, and then just the sort of frame and the bits that I'll actually use for my build. Right, so if I pop it on the scales, it weighs with all its stuff 39.48. If I use one of these battery pads, I don't really see why you would use two, but if I used one, 39.8. So not the lightest frame I've ever seen, but not particularly heavy either. Now, my idea for this is to run a GoPro session on top. So clearly I'm not going to be using a top mounted battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the XT30 connector, and I wouldn't use an XT30 connector anyway, simply because it annoys me having to change connectors on my batteries. Most of my batteries are XT60s, and I like having them interchangeable between my 4-inch and 5-inch, etc. So I won't be using this part, and I may or may not use the receiver antenna mounts. So yeah, so I'm going to take those off and we'll see what it weighs then. Right, so I've taken all the razzmatazz off and just left the 3D printed camera mounts. Turn my scales on again. I've got a weight now of 34.5 grams. If I add on the arm protectors, so that's basically adding on 2 grams, so 36.5. I'm not going to bother with this at all. I may use this, but possibly with shorter tubes. But if I add that on, 38. So it doesn't actually add that much weight onto it. So it's not a bad weight. I mean, certainly there are lighter frames out there. The Zero frame that I run is 27 grams with camera mounts. Obviously it doesn't have these 3D printed bits, but as I said, what I'm really looking for is kind of like a fine line here. I need enough momentum to carry me through moves, etc., but I don't want too much weight, which is going to slow me down and remove the bottom end punch that I need. In terms of the frame itself, I really like it. The 25mm standoffs gives you tons of room to build on the inside. I mean, you could use lower standoffs, I presume, probably get away with 20mm or thereabouts. As I said, the carbon looks really good, the fit and finish looks really good. Is it perfect for what I want? Well, it kind of is, but the bit that worries me is how slender the top plate is, not in terms of the thickness of the carbon, but in terms of the width of it. If you imagine a GoPro session probably is going to be sort of that wide, it's going to stick out quite a long way. So I'm going to have to be creative in terms of 3D printed mount or the way I mount it up. But really what it will come down to is really how it flies, but it also needs to have enough protection that I'm not going to be knocking it off every 2 minutes. So as I said, this is just a quick overview of this frame. Later down the line I may build it up. I've got another 3-inch frame that's coming in the next couple of days, which should be substantially lighter, and it's just really going to be a case of looking at the pros and cons for me and deciding which way I want to go. But I think this frame, forgetting about the unusual requirements that I'm looking for, I think it's a really sweet little 3-inch frame. Certainly if you wanted to look at a Runcam Split Mini or something like that, it's not a bad frame. And if you're looking to get nice HD footage from your Runcam Split, etc., I think with the way the geometry of the arms, etc., it's probably a good frame to look at. It's not too expensive either. I think this retails for 30 quid or something like that. And looking at Rotorious FPV's website, they look like a really small company. They only make a few frames and bits and bobs and 3D prints. All their frames are sort of 3-inch and below. There might be a 4-inch on there as well. But the unique thing about them is a USA and UK warehouse. And I suspect what we've got here is two guys, one who lives in the UK and one who lives in America, and they're both working on the same projects. So they probably just, you know, the UK guy prints it out in the UK and cuts the frame, etc., and vice versa. So if we take a 3-inch prop, there's plenty of room in terms of prop clearance. And again, at the back, we're not really going to have any issues there. So hope that was useful. As I said, I've got another frame to look at, and then I'll start having a think about which way I want to do this. Other than that, I think it's fantastic. Anyway guys, cheers for watching. Thanks very much. Bye bye.